As we're going to talk a little Eagles with him, as the Eagles will introduce Doug Pederson as their 23rd head coach today. Kevin Burkhardt, Zach Gelb, and Mike Zahn, thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
Yeah, fellas, good. I've never been called a mastermind before, so I feel inspired by that.
Well, you really are a rising superstar in the business, because I remember you when you were back at your days at WFAN doing updates, and I believe it was covering the Jets, and then you did a tremendous job covering the Mets on SNY, and now you're a big national superstar enjoying the sun in California, which we're very jealous of as it's bitter cold here in Philly.
I heard, I was back on the East Coast for the holidays, and it was great. I mean, it was 70 degrees out. It was nuts. So I guess I didn't leave the warm weather long enough for you guys. But football's in full swing. You guys got your new coach down there. It's going to be interesting moving forward.
And a lot of fans aren't really excited about the hire of Doug Pederson because it's Philadelphia. That's expected, especially with everything that they went through with Chip Kelly. Why should fans be excited about Doug Pederson?
Well, I'm pretty sure if you go back, most people didn't know who the hell Andy Reid was either. I mean, when you think about it, when you go back to that hire, maybe that wasn't at the time the most inspiring choice because people didn't really know what he was or what he was about or know him or know what he could do. And I think in some way, Doug Pederson, when you hear the name, he's a backup quarterback. You think, you know him, but you're not really inspired by him. But I think that Doug Pederson could actually be a really good head coach. I actually had the Chiefs last game of the regular season with John Litch, my partner. We talked to Doug for a while, and listen, he's bright. I think he can handle, certainly, he played there under Andy. I think he can certainly handle Philadelphia. I think he's pretty grounded. And I think he's got a lot of good ideas. Yes, is he in the Andy Reid mold? Yeah, he is. Does that mean he's going to be calling games exactly like Andy Reid is? I don't think so. I really don't. I think he's got some different wiggles in there that you might see that Andy maybe didn't have, and I think he'll bring his own personality. So I don't think it's a bad hire. I think it's a fascinating hire in the sense that, they went rogue here and went from Andy Reid to Chip Kelly, two totally different schemes, people, everything about it. And then essentially you're coming back to Andy Reid, which is interesting in that fact because it was made pretty clear by how Jeffrey Lurie talked about it afterwards that he was not pleased with not only the results but everything. But I do think, even though, look, he's not the shock value coach, but I think he could be a good head coach. And I think, Zach, when you look around the league this year, look at all the hires. I think most people, unless Mike Shanahan's coming back, unless Nick Saban's going to the NFL, most are not shock value hires. They're just not. And the reason for that is people don't know who these people are. If I look at the names out there, and you would know better than me because you're in Philly right now and you're on the radio all the time, but I think that, I don't think there's many names that would really have jumped off the page to Eagles fans. They would have said, "Oh, that's a great hire." Sean McDermott, maybe, because they know him a little bit. But even when he was there, he didn't have a great time there. So he had to, come in after the late great Jim Johnson and try and succeed that. But I think it's really name recognition, and I do think Doug Pederson could be a good coach.
Yeah, I don't know if Doug Pederson can be a good coach or not. I guess time will tell and we will see. But the one problem that I really have with this whole thing is the Eagles fired Chip Kelly early to get a jump start, and they were going to do an extensive search, according to their owner in Jeffrey Lurie. And they didn't even interview a defensive-minded coordinator, like you were saying, a name like Sean McDermott. Howie Roseman continues to have this support. And then you see some things today that Ron Jaworski was in on some interviews and then wasn't in on some other interviews. The thing to me really is I don't believe the Eagles did their due diligence in this process. How would you evaluate the way that the Eagles handled this process of hiring Doug Pederson?
I think it's pretty obvious that they just wanted Chip Kelly out of the building. I don't really buy that they wanted to get a weak jump start on the thing. And I think you go into these things and you have your ideas of who you want to hire and who's on your radar. And I don't know. I haven't made any phone calls. I haven't talked to anybody, so let me put that disclaimer out there, okay? So this is just me looking from the outside as an NFL guy. But, I don't know how sharp their plan was other than to get rid of Chip Kelly. I think by some of the people that they interviewed, look, they brought in some of the names that they brought in the Adam Gases of the world, which you had to do. But you're right. The way that press conference was done, it made it believe like, we have our first choice. do this to get a jump start on that? Well, maybe Doug Pederson was their first choice. And that's the thing that we don't know. I mean, all these reports come out, but, maybe Doug Peterson's the guy. Maybe they had talks with Andy Reid and Doug Pederson well before this all happened, and he really was their first choice. And they interviewed all the other guys just to kind of go through the motions. The thing that would throw me is that, they had Tom Coughlin in there. Reports were out that they wanted Ben McAdoo, too. So that would lead me to believe that maybe they didn't have their A guy, that simply they wanted to get Chip Kelly out of Philadelphia.
The rumored guys out there to be the offensive and defensive coordinator are Jim Schwartz and Frank Reich. What can you tell us about those two guys? Obviously, a lot of people know Schwartz because of his 4-3 defense and his head coaching experience with the Lions.
I don't know Frank Reich at all, so I'll say that. I've never met him, and I don't know, look, of course I know who he is. I know about his background, but I don't know. I don't have enough insight on Frank Reich to give you a true, fair opinion, so I'll leave that out. But Jim Schwartz, I'll say this. I don't think he was a very good head coach because I think some of his communication skills broke down. It's just a different animal. But I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator. And I think his style, kind of that grating, get-on-you type style is different than what they had. I actually thought at some points Billy Davis did a decent job considering what he had to deal with his defense playing way more snaps than everybody else and all the stuff that he had to deal with there. But Jim Schwartz is a different animal. He comes in, they're going to have some personnel things now, which are going to be unique to me because I do think that the Eagles' front seven is close to fantastic. I mean, I know they maybe underperformed last year at times, but they were also hurt. But I mean, I think the linebacking group combined with those three beasts up front, Fletcher Cox leading the way, I think can be as good as anybody. Now the question is, if you go to the 4-3, what do? You put Connor Barwin back on the end? You probably do. That would be the question for me. But I think as a defensive coach, he's an excellent choice, and I like the move.
We're talking to one of the play-by-play voices for the NFL on Fox, and that's Kevin Burkhardt. And as you had just mentioned, Fletcher Cox, very excited. He actually tweeted yesterday about the possibility of playing in a 4-3 defense. For the listeners at home who just don't know the difference between a 3-4 defense and a 4-3 defense, can you explain why a defensive lineman would be so excited and what impact that would have then also on those linebackers that you just mentioned?
Well, everybody's scheme is a little bit different, but I think, look, the basic way to explain it is this. In a 3-4 defense, for the most part, this is not always true, those defensive linemen have a lot more responsibility. And, they have to work on usually a couple of different gaps, which means, they're working on two different sides of a player, or two different sides of two players, just to kind of hold the line and get penetration so the linebackers kind of make the play. It's extremely difficult, and it's extremely taxing. A lot of these newer guys, now I haven't gone back on film and looked at what Schwartz is going to do, but you play the 3-4, and the goal is, hey, you're going to put you, say we're going to put you on the left shoulder of the guard, and you're going to go attack that way, and that's going to be your gap. That's going to be your gap control, and you go there and shoot up the field and make plays. So I can see why a guy like that would be excited because normally, he's taking on double teams constantly, and he's still one of the best in the league. Well, now you would think that the projection is less double teams, and that means he would be even better. That explains it. That's about the best I can do.
I know a lot of Eagles fans likely don't want to hear this question, and sometimes the truth does hurt. Is this the start of a rebuilding phase in Philadelphia, or is just the NFC East so wide open that who knows, maybe 2-3 years down the line, Doug Pederson and company are on top of this division?
I don't see why it can't be this year. I mean, who in the NFC East is so dominant that they're going to have a hard time overtaking them? I mean,
no one.
No, that's the answer. And that, look, they have a lot of work to do, though. I mean, they're, as we know, they had a lot of roster turnover. It turned out to be a disaster. I think this. Here's my initial thought. The quarterback is going to be important. Okay, what they're going to do there, how they're going to work that out. Bradford, will he go? Will he stay? And if he doesn't, what are they going to do there? Okay, that's going to be the biggest question of the offseason. But I do think there are some things that can help this team. I think they have some plays and pieces here. I think they're going to go back and look at it and turn this into a more West Coast, yes, but put some downhill plays in there for DeMarco Murray to make him a player again, make him effective again. Because clearly that was a joke last year the way that worked out. So I think they're going to do that. That'll help. I think they've got at tight end, even though he didn't have his the year that everyone thought he would. They need game breakers, though. And they don't have that. They got rid of Macklin and Deshaun Jackson. And you saw what Macklin did for Kansas City. He changed their entire offense. It was a horrible decision-making process by Chip Kelly. They got burned, so they need that. And on defense, they've got a lot of pieces in place. So I really do think change in scheme, come in here, bring in some different ideas. But unfortunately, as we know, fellas, the biggest question in the NFL is quarterback. And right now, I don't know who theirs is going to be and what the answer will be going forward to that. So that'll be the biggest question. But, that being said, can they compete in the NFC East this year? Yes. The answer is yes, because the division, unless something remarkably changes in the offseason, is up for grabs, and I think it will be up for grabs.
I guess that's music to our ears here, sitting in Philadelphia, as the city's just dying for a winner. And you're right, we're all going to be glued to the TV today at 2 p.m., waiting to hear what the answer will be out of Doug Pederson's mouth in regards to the play of his quarterback, or if they're going to bring him back in Sam Bradford. But also an area that I think is a big concern and something Chip didn't really pay attention to, looking at his 2 draft classes, Kevin, as we're talking to Kevin Burkhardt, is the offensive line play, because they haven't drafted offensive linemen in the last 2 draft classes.
Well, guys, look, they had one of the better offensive lines in the league, and then, again, go through what happened. They get rid of Evan Mathis for a cap hit, which didn't make much sense to me at the time. And they plug in guys at guard they thought were going to play better. They didn't play better, okay? So, you get rid of veterans and you keep cutting cap, but at some point you pay for it. As far as the rest of the line goes, I think that, look, they're solid at points. Jason Kelsey, who I think is terrific, did not have a good year. I think he'd be the first to tell you that, okay? Jason Peters is an all-pro on the left side. Yes, he's getting up there in years, but this guy can still play. Lane Johnson's a good player on the right side. So, yeah, they need some interior players. And maybe, you want to draft that left tackle for the future and put him at guard, something along those lines. But I don't think it's egregious that they haven't drafted offensive line the last 2 years, guys. I think what was egregious this year is they got one of their best offensive linemen for nothing. So I think there's a difference there, if that makes any sense. I mean, yeah, this year, could they go there? Yes, and I'm sure they will. But they're going to have some, they're going to have some things that they're going to want to fill for sure to make this team better. And I don't know if that's going to be first or second round. We'll see.
Shifting from the Eagles to the NFL playoffs, as there are still an AFC and NFC championship game, the later game on Sunday's docket is the NFC championship game, and in that game, there are 2 franchises who have each been to 1 Super Bowl and lost, and that's the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals. Which franchise do you think has the better story?
Well, boy, that's a great question, because I think they're both fantastic stories. I also think they've both been the best 2 teams in the NFL this year, and so I think it's kind of fitting that they're. I mean, look, you start with Carolina, and I think the thing that strikes me with Carolina is the calm water of Ron Rivera. Think back, guys. 2 years ago, Carolina was what, I want to say 3-8 or something like that. It actually might have been earlier than that, the year when they got off to a bad start. They wanted him out of there. The media reports that Ron Rivera's got to go. Team isn't winning, and they're off to a terrible start. And Jerry Richardson, who is so patient as an owner, and is one of the great owners in this league, said, no, we're going to stick with this group. Well, they went on a great run. They won 8 in a row. They got in the playoffs. Last year, another terrible start. And what did? They finished up strong, and yeah, they were 7-8-1, but they won the division. They got in the playoffs, okay? And then this year, obviously, it all came together. But I think what that tells you is in the NFL, where it's easy to pull the trigger and fire everybody and keep moving on, like the Cleveland Browns do seemingly every year, you don't win that way. You have to find consistency and build from within and keep that going. Ron Rivera, Mike Shula, Sean McDermott, those guys have been all there for 5 years. Coaching staff's been there. They're doing the same things for the last 5 years, and they've drafted extremely well. And so when you're doing the same things and you're consistent and you keep getting better through the draft, you're going to be good. So that's their story. And then for Arizona, it's this. I don't know how you can't love Bruce Arians and Steve Keim.
The best.
Steve Keim is the general manager, and this guy and Arians are perfect together. Most don't know Khan because obviously he's not in the public face most of the time. But he is as good as it gets in terms of just really knowing football. Former offensive lineman, one of the guys, just a guy you'd want to have a beer with and talk football because he knows and loves the game and he's aggressive. And so he gets to coach in Arians, and who all he wants to do is be aggressive. I mean, when Arizona threw that ball last week, instead of running out the clock on I think it was a second down play, I was dying laughing because I knew Arians was going to throw the ball. He's not running out the clock. He wants to win the game. He wants to score a touchdown and salt it away. That's who he is. I love it. He doesn't care what anybody thinks, and the players love it. So, you have that dynamic, and then Carson Palmer, who would never won a playoff game, who's been in this league forever, and is playing the best he's ever played that's going to get USC. I think it's just ripe full of storylines. I think it's going to be a heck of a game.
With these 4 coaches remaining in these production meetings, what are these 4 coaches like?
That's a good question. I mean, I met with all of them. I did all this year. I mean, Gary Kubiak is a nice guy, very reserved, extremely smart. Bill Belichick, we know what he can be, but because my partner is John Lynch, Bill sat with us for an hour this year and talked about it, which is unheard of, by the way. Usually you get, maybe 15 minutes, depending on the coach, maybe 20, sometimes maybe 7. But he sat with us for an hour and talked about old football stories, and it was like the best thing ever. It was a side of him
it's awesome.
I don't think anybody's ever seen. So, look, we know what he is to the media. He's not helpful at all, and that's horrible if you cover the team. But that was one of the cool moments for me. And then the NFC guys, Ron Rivera is all class. Former 85 Bear, just all class. He's the type of guy that you'd want your son to play for. And then Arians, man, I feel like he's the type of guy where you pour a shot of whiskey and you belly up to the bar and you laugh and you let it rip. He doesn't have a care in the world, and it's beautiful because he's gotten to this point of his career and he's had a wonderful career, and there is nothing next for him. And in a way, it's made him great. He was already great, but it's made him even greater because he doesn't care. If he makes a mistake, if he gets criticized, he is going to put all his chips on the table and let it fly. And he is fun, man. He tells you exactly how it is. He does not sugarcoat anything in the meeting. He tells you exactly who's playing well, who's not, why this, why that. It is awesome. So that's how I would describe those guys.
My Bruce Arians story is the first time I got to interview him, I didn't even have to go through a PR person. It just shows how down-to-earth a guy like Bruce Arians is. But on the way out here with Kevin Burkhardt from Fox, before we let you run, in the AFC, of course, it's Brady and Manning. We get to see it once again. We know Brady's going to play for a few more years from everything that he says, but is this the end for Peyton Manning? Is this the last time we're going to see these two teams go up against each other?
I think it is, yeah. I don't know for sure, but I just don't think he can make the throws anymore, and I think he knows it. And that's hard, when you're a Hall of Fame player and a legendary player. But clearly, Peyton, he just can't. He can't make the same throws anymore. He's had all the injuries, and his body is failing him, and that's not to be ashamed of when you're 40 years old. Most guys fail well before that. Brady is an anomaly. Somehow he's still throwing it as strong and as good as ever. But I do think that this is going to be it for Peyton. I think it's been too hard a year. I think he knows that it's a struggle right now with his body, and it would be cool if he get back there to the Super Bowl and give it one more shot. I think it'd be really, really neat. But that's just a guess. I don't have any inside information on that.
Well, fantastic insight today. Thanks so much, Kevin Burkhardt. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. Be well.